Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Now, everybody knows that I'm a fan of Arch, and I tend to stick with vanilla Arch, but there are quite a few variants of Arch out there that are equally as good and are certainly worth trying. Today, I'm going to look at one of those variants, Artix Linux. I'll see you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So why am I looking at Artix Linux today? The simple answer is that since I did that systemd video, I've had multiple requests for me to have a quick look or a review of this distro. And I've never tried it before, and I thought, fair enough, let's give it a go. Now, I should say from the outset, Artix Linux does not use systemd. It uses OpenRC, runnit, or S6. I've not tried S6 or OpenRC, but I have used runnit before on Void, which is a great distro. I've still got it installed. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to fire up a variant and take a look. Now, in many ways, Artix is a distro for those people who object to systemd, because if they've no problem with it and they just want something easy to configure, well, they've got options out there. I mean, I'm just thinking Manjaro. They've got Arco Linux and Endeavour Linux. So why would you go to Artix? Well, an important reason for you to move to this distro is the fact that you don't like systemd. And I understand why many people don't. If you go back and have a look at my video, I kind of pitch the arguments for and against. And personally, I have to say that I've come to the view that systemd, yeah, it's got some disadvantages, but they're not a huge concern to me personally. I remain someone who could be convinced in the future, but as things stand, I'm pretty happy with standard Arch. But if you're not, and you want to explore an alternative, Artix could be the thing for you. So let's go to the combined screen and let's have a look at their website. So you should see the Artix website in front of you now. Quite a nice website. I quite like the theming, to be honest. And we get simple, fast, and systemd free, the art of Linux. Okay. And it declares itself as a rolling release distro based on Arch. It uses OpenRC, runnit, or S6 as init because PID1 must be simple, secure, and stable. I don't necessarily disagree with that. So, okay, we have a few links here. We have a link to the wiki, and I'm just going to that now. Strange that it's asking me to log in. But anyway, so we have a page that takes us through an installation. And I think the recommended way to install is to do a text-based install, just like with the standard Arch. And there are reasons why it would recommend that. If you're using an installation off an ISO image that is installing the packages off the ISO, you may get a few problems if you've got to do a big upgrade after the installation. I'll talk a little bit about my experience afterwards. So just follow along. It's pretty much like the Arch wiki. A few differences to a standard Arch install, but if you can install Arch using the text-based installation, you can install Artix, not a problem. And then it takes you through configuration for OpenRC and how to use that. I'm not going to go into the how do you use OpenRC, how do you use S6, how do you use runnit here, because you can find that information out on the internet. There is plenty of pages that if you're used to systemd, you'll get a systemd to OpenRC cheat sheet. In fact, let me see if I can just find that. If we go to OpenRC systemd cheat sheet, just doing a standard Google search, and needless to say, from the Gen 2 wiki, there we go. We've got a cheat sheet that you could follow along. But okay, let's go back to the Artix wiki. So you have several repositories in Artix. Now, it has to have its own repositories because many of the packages that standard Arch use rely on systemd. So they have to be recompiled. And you have rather than core, extra, community, and multi-lib, you would have system, world, galaxy, and lib32. But it still uses Pacman, just as Arch does. And you can use the AUR, you can install Yay, you can pretty much, from what I've found, install the majority of AUR packages because obviously they're compiled at the time that you install them, although there will be some that are configured to work with systemd, and you might have to go into the package build and alter it a little bit. But my personal experience has been it worked pretty much out of the box. So it's good there to basically have a wiki that you can find answers to. There's also a dedicated forum. Let's go to this. It's taken a little while to load, I must say. So a dedicated forum, and it looks to be relatively active. And if we go back to the main site, you also have a download link. Now, you've got some options here. So 3 different types of installation media are available. So you have the base ISO. So this is, if I'm honest, what I would probably use if I was installing this on my system. It's done in the terminal, and as it says there, it's intended for knowledgeable users, and it's the recommended way of installing Artix. And the team will be happy to support any issues. Okay, great. But they also, for those people who don't want to do a a text-based installation, they also do graphical images that come with a slightly pre-configured desktop. LXQT, lxde, Mate, Cinnamon, Plasma, XFCE, and a basic set of applications. I'm not so sure. They use the Calamaris installer on these. I'm not so sure about this last sentence. People afraid of the Linux terminal or in need of a quick, intuitive installation would want this ISO. Support will be provided if asked nicely and politely. Sorry, guys, that's a bit patronizing, isn't it? But hey-ho, whatever. I'm going to use a graphical install today simply because it's quick and easy. But I probably would use the base ISO if I was going to install it on my hard drive. Right, the third method of installing it is through community ISO images that are created by the devs in 2 flavor, GTK and Qt. The main environment is Mate and KDE, respectively, but they also provide lxde and lxqt as lightweight alternatives. They've got a complete set of applications, and generally they're well tested, but provided without official support. So they're for people who just want a desktop that just works and you're too busy to set it up yourselves. And to be honest, sometimes that's for all of us. So let's go down. So you'll see that we've got the base system there, and you can choose your init system, OpenRC, runnit, or S6, or you can go for these graphical installations using Cinnamon, lxde, lxqt, Mate, Plasma, or XFCE, or you can go for the full pack, which are these community distros the GTK version or the Qt version. I've gone for the GTK version. I've downloaded this because apparently it comes fully loaded. It's quite a lot bigger than the other ISOs. It's 2.3 gigs, not as big as the Qt one, which is 2.8 gigs. And I downloaded it and fired it up in VirtualBox. So, what more to say at this point? All looks pretty good. I do like the website. I do like the links to forums, mailing lists, IRC channels, Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, etc., etc. And it's even got a nice subtle donate link there, which is always nice to see. So, without further ado, let's fire it up, see what we think. Right, so I've booted the Artix Community GTK OpenRC ISO, what a mouthful that is. It booted fine. I was able to set the resolution to full HD in VirtualBox. I've given it the normal parameters, 8 gig of RAM, and I've created a 32 gig virtual hard drive. And this is what you see. We'll run through the desktop briefly once it's installed, but for now, let's just get on and double-click the install system. I should say, I really hope these links to PDF documents, help documents, are there after the installation, because I think that's a really good idea. But let's just double-click. I'm assuming it's going to use Calamaris, but let's wait and see. And yes, it's Calamaris. It's already picked up that I'm in the UK, and I'm not surprised at that, because a little bit like Manjaro, when I booted and I got the grub screen, it asked me to set my language and locale, which I think is a great idea. More distros should do that, and it's all set up. So let's just go next. I want to see if there's anything different here. I won't put you through the whole installation, but just next, next, next. Everything seems right. I'm going to erase the disk. I'm just in standard BIOS mode for the minute, and it's going to not create a swap. It's just going to create an ext4 partition for the full 32 gig, which I'm fine with. So OTB, password. Use the same password for the admin account, root. Yeah, good with that. Does that all look good? Looks good to me. And off we go. So you've seen this a million times before, and I'm not going to speed it up and play music. You know what happens. It's going to install the system. Once it's installed, I'm going to pause this in a second, but once it's installed, I'm going to have a quick look at it. I'm going to have a little bit of a play to see if I can install the packages that I use all the time. And then I'll come back and you can see what I've ended up with. So see you in a few minutes. Okay, and we're back. And yeah, it's installed fine. It booted up fine. The wallpaper seems to change occasionally. It was just basically this wallpaper, but without the DNA twirl on it initially, so I've changed it back, but no problem at all. So what I did is I ran a full upgrade. That was the first thing that I did, and I came across a few problems. Now, I think it would be fair to say that this wasn't specifically an Artix issue. This is a problem with getting a ready-made ISO that's based on Arch. It's going to be out of date, and it needed over 1,000 packages. So I proceeded to update it, and I was getting a few errors. The standard NSS error that is actually marked on the Arch Linux page where you have to overwrite a file. And I was also getting an error about Artix's custom build file. But anyway, little bit of Googling and I worked my way through that, and I managed to do a full upgrade of, like I say, over 1,000 packages. So all good in the end. But I think what it does show is that if you're going to install an Arch system, you really need to do it online so your packages are up to date from the get-go. And if I was installing this myself rather than just using it to do a demonstration, I would have gone the way of the text-based installer. So, but hey-ho, you know, it doesn't take a huge amount of looking up in Google to sort. And what we end up with is a very nice Mate desktop. Now, I went ahead and I thought, right, once I've done the upgrade, what should I do? And I installed Yay from the AUR, well, git cloned Yay, and then I installed per Mac, and all good. Then I proceeded to install various fonts and bits and pieces that I use. All good. I haven't actually found a package that I use that isn't in the repositories. So that's all good. So let's have a look at Artix itself. As you can see, it's quite well laid out. Down here we have the show desktop. We have Hex Chat. We have Midori, which is a rather unusual choice, I think, for the default web browser, but hey-ho. And we have the Mate terminal. And if I open Midori, you will see that even though we have lost the PDFs to the help files, Midori is already set up, so it opens up straight away on the Artix Linux homepage. It has a tab that opens up for the forums, the Artix wiki, and Artix Linux Gitea. I've no idea what that is. But anyway, so you can access help pretty well. What does it look like out of the box? Well, you can see it. It's I don't know whether I like the theming or not. I mean, theming isn't a big thing for me because I will always end up applying my own theming. But yeah, let's have a look. I sort of like the dark theme. I don't like the green icons, but it's irrelevant. What wallpapers have we got that we can install from default? Well, most of them seem to be the standard Mate wallpapers, if I'm honest. This was the wallpaper that it switched to when I'd just installed and rebooted. But I actually quite like that DNA theme, so all good. What themes have we got installed? Artix Dark. So that's using the Artix Dark controls, the Spidey window border, the Mate Fayanza dark icons. You can, of course, install any icons you want from the repos. And, yeah, it's down to you to make it look how you want. One thing about this community repo, community version of Artix is it seems to come fully loaded. So if we look at the menu, I don't know if this is the Breeze menu or not. I don't think it is, actually. What do we got here? By default, we've got Compton, Ingrampa, Cavantum Manager, LeafPad. Standard Mate stuff. I've installed Nitrogen and PyCon myself. They've got Redshift there, screenshot tools, and Wine Tricks by default. Okay, so Wine's installed by default. LibreOffice Math. In graphics, we've got Digicam. Okay. Inkscape, we've got the GIMP there. And Show Photo. So I've got to admit there's some packages here I haven't used. And right, so we do have Firefox installed out of the box, along with Claws Mail. I used to use that years ago. But hey-ho, if you don't like Claws Mail, you can always use Thunderbird, which is installed as well. Tiger VNC Viewer, and of course Midori. In Office, we've got the full LibreOffice suite, and Genie Fluid and Meld for programming. Well, Genie is something I use all the time. What have we got in sound and video? Quite a lot, actually. Audacity, Brasero, Handbrake, Kdenlive by default. Okay. Lollipop, an LX music player, an MPV. OpenShot video editor by default. It's pretty much set to go, this. And in your system tools, you can see Alacrity at the top. I've installed that. Let's have a look at HTOP and see what it says. 389 megs, which is pretty good. Hard to complain at that. So what else? Everything else is pretty much as you would expect, if I'm honest. I've had a good play with it. The only problem that I actually had, I've installed PMAC, and I tried to replace the original PMAC with the PMAC AUR that I normally use. But anyway, it put it back when I was messing about putting some other packages in. I compiled my version. I did a git clone of my repo, and I compiled my DWM. Now, the only thing that I would say is, so far, although DWM has compiled fine, it won't start. I'm trying to log into it from, I think it's LightDM that it's using. I'm trying to log into it, and I'm just getting a one rule loaded error, and it's just throwing me out. I haven't explored it in any detail. I think it's LightDM and not XDM, but I could actually be wrong. Let's just have a look here in PMAC. So LightDM is actually installed, and that appears to be what we're using at the moment. So overall, I quite like it. Do I like the theming? Not so much. Would I have a problem converting over to it? No, I think if you've used an Arch system before, this is actually quite nice. And in fact, it doesn't. This community edition doesn't just come with Mate. If I log out here, and we'll see what we've got, you do have lxde. And you have OpenBox there installed by default. Let's just go into the lxde and see what we have. I haven't opened this at all, but okay. It looks pretty similar to me. So if you prefer a lighter version, let's just run HTOP on this and see what it does. 245 megs. So if you need an even lighter desktop, you can always run this. What about OpenBox? I'd only... right, log out. One client rule loaded. That was what I kept getting when I tried to log into DWM, and it kept throwing me out. So I'm sure that's just a configuration issue that I need to look into. Let's have a look at OpenBox. I just wonder if it's configured out the box. And that would seem to say no, it isn't. So let's just log out of there. And we'll go back into Mate. You can see I've got DWM set up. I must explore what went wrong there. But so if you want a systemd free version of an Arch system, Artix would seem to be definitely an option for you, and it seems to be gaining quite a lot of popularity. This is, of course, just a quick look. I've had a play because I wanted to see what everybody is raving about. As far as the OpenRC system is concerned, I'm going to have to look into that, and I suspect my issue with DWM might be because I need to do something with OpenRC, but I could be completely wrong. Anyway, let's go and have a chat. So that's Artix Linux. What do I think of it? Well, I think if you have objections to systemd, but you really like Arch, it's a really viable alternative for you. But given the issues that I had with the updating, I would definitely go for the text-based installer rather than trying to install your packages off the ISO, the overall big GTK OpenRC ISO. But that was nothing to do with Artix itself. That's just the nature of the beast with a rolling release distribution. And a little bit of Googling, you can solve that relatively simply. The theming, I'm unsure of, but if you like it, it might be an option. The DWM issue I had, I'm really not sure what the issue was. Maybe it's a graphic or something to do with Xorg. I don't know. I'm going to look into it because I've recently been trying a few Arch-based distros. You know that I reported last week I'd had issues with Windows 10 on a partition. And I've still got it on here because I'm still deciding on the process. People have given me lots of conflicting views. But I took 4 of my ThinkPads. I've wiped them completely and reinstalled. And I've put Manjaro on one. I've put Endeavour on another. I've put Arco on another. And I've put plain Arch. Can't even say it now. I've put plain Arch on another one. And I did a standard Git clone of my repo, and I set up DWM, and it worked fine on all of them. I went through the same process with Artix, and I'm not quite sure what's happening. So the only difference I can really see is this is OpenRC, which is why I'm thinking it could be something to do with that, but hey-ho. Would I use it? I think the answer at the moment is no, but not because there is anything wrong with the distro. It's just that I think we're quite lucky in the Arch world that there are lots of different ways and options that we actually have at the moment. And personally, I like things like Endeavour. I even like the Esnix script for installing standard Arch, and I'm used to standard Arch. But if you have an issue with systemd, this is a definite option. And the Mate desktop, I mean, I explored it. I didn't have any problem installing packages. I didn't have any problem with the AUR. So you might want to explore it as an alternative. Anyway, that's it. Just a quick first look today. Before we go, I would like to thank my patrons, who are the guys who are making this channel all it can be. So that's Cabinian Schilderman, Robert Boudreau, Gary Moore, Aristotelis Papagiorgio, Stormpick, Stephen Cross, Mike Long, David Bird, Entropy UK, Richard Wade, Tiger, Philip Espy, Forrest Rhodes and Scott Russell. And Forrest Rhodes, I apologise I spelt your name wrong last week. Hopefully that's sorted now. Guys, hope you enjoyed the video. As I say, it was just a quick look. And I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. And if you're in the UK, it's bank holiday weekend, so we get the Monday off as well.